Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red Podcast. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. We're back here for another episode of the show, and we have quite a few things to cover today after the Huskers landed a blue chip running back. They also landed a 2024 commitment from a player in Germany this week, plus the basketball team picked up a new addition, so we'll cover all of that stuff and more. Before we get to that, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to the channel here. It really helps us out, helps other Husker fans also find our content as well. So, yeah, before we get into it, Danny, how you doing this morning, man?
Good. It's the weather's heating up here, so it feels like summer, and we're that much closer to football. I know I say that every single show, but boy, am I excited!
Got what, game one of the finals tonight, right?
Yeah.
Celtics,
There's gonna be
Celtics,
some late
Mavs.
nights. Yeah, there's gonna be some late nights, but I hope they can seal the deal this time around. They went to the finals, obviously, 2 years ago against Golden State, and now they have a chance to take on the Mavericks and Kyrie. So that'll be interesting. I think the cheapest ticket was going for like $3,000. So just a drop in the bucket, right? But
Yeah, it's crazy. So
I
it's
will
game
not be
one in
attending.
Boston then.
I will not be
Okay.
attending any live games of the NBA Finals. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's way too much money for a basketball game, but
I
it's
know.
almost better to watch it at home anyway.
Yeah, and it's like you have you can get your snacks at home, you can get your drinks at home, and the $3,000 isn't guaranteeing you a courtside seat. It's just your basic ticket price. So I don't know.
Yeah, you can get a whole 12 pack for the cost of one beer at the
I know.
game. So, I
Yeah,
mean, that's that
honestly,
right
that's
there
true
is a
even during
reason
a
not to
regular
go.
season. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
true during a
yeah.
regular season game too now. So
Yeah, it's crazy. But at any rate, so that should be a fun series to follow for NBA basketball fans. But in terms of Nebraska, some big news on Wednesday is Jamarian Parker. We were talking about this. When is he going to commit? We talked about Mecky Nelson, how that, maybe was like a pressure point for Nebraska, putting some pressure on him. But whatever it was, whatever pushed him to that point, he made as a commitment on Thursday or on Wednesday, excuse me, which really important for Nebraska. They got a four-star running back last year in Kewan Lacey. Of course, he ended up signing with Missouri, didn't wind up at Nebraska. So there was kind of a hole there. Just, they only signed one running back in the first two classes, under Matt Rule. So if there was one position that was kind of under recruited a little bit, outside of the work they did in the transfer portal, it was running back. So huge addition here. Jamarian Parker's a guy ranked 340th overall, but I mean, he averaged over 11 yards per carry last year. He ran a sub 11 second 100-meter dash as a freshman. This kid's an absolute freak. He caught 16 passes last year as well. He can do kickoff returns. So I feel like he's a guy that's going to contribute right away. And this is the kind of the home run hitting back that the Huskers were trying to get in Kewan Lacey last year and didn't. So, I mean, they still have to get Jamarian Parker to signing day, which there's a lot of other programs interested, like USC, Alabama, TCU are all some that Nebraska beat out here. But a big win for EJ Barthel and Matt Rule on the recruiting trail.
yeah, absolutely. And you just kind of mentioned it right there. Still a lot of time towards signing day. So even though I get excited when a guy like Parker commits, it's always with a bit of caution. But right now, I like the way this looks. I mean, Lacey is a tough runner, and yet he's fast. He has a unique blend of being able to run to the outside and also just running north south. So I think he's a great fit for this offense, and you just kind of look at his acceleration. Once he gets to the second level, can he accelerate? That's something I always look for in running back, and the answer is yes. And so, I this is definitely a big pickup for Nebraska, and I think given how this offense is going to be run, and we're not going to probably run the ball as much as we did last season, that'll give him more opportunities to be effective and be that explosive kind of complement to the passing attack.
Yeah, and so you look at the 2025 class as a whole right now. Parker was the ninth commitment total for Nebraska. He's the second four-star according to the 24/7 composite rankings. So that's 2 of 9 for Nebraska, which isn't too bad. That's about 25%. Would definitely like to see that blue chip number, the number of four-star recruits, get up there in the 30-40% range. 50 would be ideal. That is going to take a little bit of, maybe after this season, if they start getting, some really big time winning, they can start getting into that range. But still a really nice class. I mean, you have a lot of guys, ranked in that 600-700 range. Nebraska loves to recruit kind of that type of player. But I'm really excited about, this kid, also Parker out of St. Louis. So that was a good get. They've missed on some bigger guys out of that area before. So that was nice to see them do that. And, I feel like he's a different kind of back than they have on this roster. I know that they're going to have Dante Dowdell and Emmett Johnson next year, but I feel like Parker can come in and be a factor next year, especially with his ability to be a kick returner, catch passes. I just feel like, he even said that they've got some good backs on this roster was one of the quotes I think he said to Husker Online, but they don't have anybody on this roster that's like me. So, even he kind of looking at this team feels like, he's going to bring a different element to this offense from the running back position.
Yeah, just his burst when he runs. As soon as he gets the ball, he just immediately, turns on the jets, and he is, a dynamic playmaker. And someone I always look at, can he fit in the Big Ten? Although now it's not the Big Ten anymore, but and for Parker, I think the answer is yes. I mean, he's got that unique ability to kind of just accelerate and also have that physical element. He's not a power back or a kind of speed back. He's a little bit of both, and he has elusiveness as well. And so he kind of his game is not necessarily completely complete, but he is a type of player that brings that multifaceted skill set to the table.
Yeah, and looking at this class as a whole, kind of talking about it earlier, with JT or TJ Lateef, excuse me, I think Jamarian Parker is right on par with Lateef right now in terms of importance and his commitments. I mean, I usually wouldn't say that about a quarterback, but because Nebraska's got Raiola and Kalen, that makes it a little less, I guess, important. Getting another Elite 11 dude is very critical for that room, but that just kind of shows how important it was for this team to get, a blue chip running back. And Matt Rule, I mean, I know that we're going to have a loaded pass offense for the next few years. I mean, that's my expectation, but Matt Rule still understands that you have to be able to run the football. You have to be able to impose your will, especially in the fourth quarter. And frankly, I think a lot of, teams that can truly run the football and get that play action game going. I mean, when you have a guy like Dylan Raiola who can play in that pro style system or a spread system, either way, but when you get that play action where you can truly kind of turn your back to the defense, that kind of allows you to create explosive plays. And I want Nebraska to be able to do that. And I think Jamarian Parker is the kind of guy that can help them kind of establish that dominant running game and take advantage of the fact that teams are going to have to start, playing with 6-7 guys in the box, because if they don't, Dylan Raiola is going to eat them alive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good compliment to what the passing attack can bring. I mean, we've talked, ad nauseum about kind of the one-dimensional offense Nebraska had last year, and teams knew to stack the box because all we could do is run. Now that's not going to be the case. They're going to have to prepare for Dylan Raiola and the wide receivers as well as the running game, and that definitely opens up your playbook, and it allows Marcus Satterfield to do a bunch of different things. And I know many have been calling for his head, but I think we're starting to see, the type of offense he can, he's more comfortable calling because he has the type of playmakers around him. So before anybody else calls for his head, just give him this year, because I think you'll see, more of what this coaching staff wants to run in terms of the type of offense.
And before we talk about the newest Nebraska basketball player, Berkey Buyakatunzel, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. I want to talk about this other 2024 commitment. If you haven't kind of heard about this, Nebraska's in the satellite camp tour down in Houston this week, and they came across a guy, he's 22 years old actually. His name is David Hofkin. He's from Germany. He was at this camp. He's 6'8". Some people have said 6'7". I believe that he's 6'8". I think there's a measurement there. But anyway, 6'7", 6'8", like 200, basically 260 pounds. This guy was, broad jumped, I think 9 feet. Looks like an absolute freak. I watched a lot of his, not a lot of his highlights, but some of his workouts that he posted on Twitter, on X or whatever you want to call it, from the satellite camp. And I watched some of his reps as a tackle, as an edge. I think he's got a chance at both. I mean, he's got really long arms. He's a really long athlete. I actually really did like him as a pass rusher, so I think they're going to try him at tackle. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to stay there, but I like this take for Nebraska. I'm sure he's coming in as a preferred walk-on. They'll probably give him some NIL money, maybe, like they've done with some of these other guys. I definitely don't think they're giving him a scholarship at this point, but the Huskers, they bet on these athletes. So this is a Matt Rule kind of take, and I like it. I mean, why not at this point take a chance on a guy that's 6'8" and has that type of freakish athleticism?
A German offensive lineman, sign me up. I mean, like not even. I'm kind of joking, but at the same time, like they're many are very solid football players. They're well built. They're solid. They're strong. I mean, it's worth it taking a flyer on this guy. And again, people will say, "Oh, why are we taking project players and not proven guys and blah blah blah? We're taking this too many of that and whatever." We've done a damn good job, given that Nebraska went 5-7 last year, and we are going to have to take some project players, and we are going to still have to find those diamonds in the rough because the wins are not there yet. And hopefully by this season that will change. But at the same time, it's not only because the wins aren't there yet. It's also because this coaching staff is good at developing talent. And I think with the case of Hoffman, I think there's a real good chance that he could be used, like you said, either on the offensive or defensive side of the football. And, they love those two-way players. Jason, the tackle from North Dakota, is it Jason Majestic? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but yeah, close enough.
So a guy like that, they love those versatile players, and they love, those type of athletes. I mean, you've seen it a lot on the offensive side of football. Bryce Turner was recruited as a wide receiver. Jeremiah Charles was recruited as a wide receiver, and now they're on the defensive side of the ball. So they love these two-way athletes, and Hoffman fits the bill. And, he's also just a strong overall prospect.
Yeah, he's a really interesting player. And I think, you look at what Nebraska has in terms of their facilities and their weight room and stuff. So yeah, Hopkins sitting there, he's 280, 6'7", 6'8", or 260 pounds. I mean, he could, if he's going to play offensive tackle, he's going to have to put on like 40 pounds of weight, which he easily could do on that frame. And so that's the thing is that, maybe in a couple of years, you're looking at a guy that's, 6'8", maybe 300 pounds. It's had a couple of years of tutelage with, Dylan Raiola and Matt Rule and all these guys, all these other assistant coaches that they have. And maybe, by then he's a guy that can play some tackle. I mean, I wouldn't expect him, this is going to be like a 2-year project. So don't think like, David Huffkin's going to come out there and be like the starting left tackle in 2025 right. or anything. But I do think he has an opportunity in the future. And yeah, there's been, some interesting, I think Sebastian Vollmer, I want to say, was from Germany. Yep. The guy that used to play for the Patriots. Yep. And there's been a bunch more players. There's a guy, his name is Brandon Collier, who kind of recruits like these international players, and he brings them over here for all these camps. They're starting to get more and more offers. Nebraska recruited a linebacker last year from Germany. I think his name was Justin Okwin. I'm going to butcher the name, but at any rate, he ended up going to Alabama. For names today. I know. He ended up going to Alabama, but they have been kind of and they offered another German player that's actually in the 2025 class this week. So those international prospects, because there are some absolute freaks and they just haven't played, very much football. And, Matt Rules always says, I mean, football's not a tough game. I can teach people how to play football. You can't teach somebody how to be 6'8" and move like this guy does. So, I don't know if anything's going to come of it, but it's not taking up a scholarship spot. And Nebraska has all the resources to get this guy to be where he needs to be in order to be like an elite football player, with the build and everything. So, why not? And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but it's not costing, Nebraska much in terms of investment. So I think it's a smart move. And I like how Matt Rule's staff is willing to, take chances on guys when others are. I mean, look at James Williams. James Williams is another great example, a JUCO guy. Not a lot of people wanted him, but the Huskers saw him at a camp and they're like, hey, this guy can play. And then last year, he ended up redshirting at the end of the season, but they had to make a decision, like, should we redshirt this guy? Or because he was making an impact. And I even read some stuff from Sean Callahan that the Husker coaches were really talking him up this week. So sometimes you take these project players and it can work out. It's not always going to, but when it does, it makes you look really smart.
If being 6'8" could be could be taught, I would have taken advantage of it by now. But Sebastian Vollmer is a great name. I had forgotten, that he was from Germany, and he was, just a stout offensive lineman, very consistent, very dependable, good technique. And so, I do like this pickup for several reasons. And, I think like you said, it's not costing Nebraska much. This coaching staff's one of their specialties is the offensive line. And so it falls right into their wheelhouse. They love athletes. They love sort of developmental project players, and they have a focus on the offensive line. So it kind of checks all the boxes in that way.
And then I know you said we were going to talk basketball, but one other thing that I remembered. So
Oh yeah,
5-star. Well, it's kind of weird because Douglas Utu, his rankings are really weird. But at any rate, he is a 5-star according to Rivals and ESPN. He's not a 5-star according to the 24/7 composite rankings. It's like 63rd.
ESPN doesn't count.
But it's really interesting though. But Rivals and ESPN both have him ranked like top of like Rivals is he's the number 8 overall player, and ESPN he's the number 11 overall player, and then 24/7 Sports has him ranked like 103, and then On 3 has him ranked like 220. So that's why his rankings are so all over the place. But
I'm just following up with that, yeah, and it's really interesting because you're looking, like you said, just for the exact numbers. On 3 has him at 280. 24/7 Sports has him at 101. ESPN has him at 11, and Rivals has him at 8. And with those rankings, On 3 has him as the 19th overall interior offensive lineman. ESPN has him as a 3rd overall, and then 24/7 Sports has him 4th and Rivals 2nd. The only really consistency with his rankings is his overall standing in the state of Nevada. 24/7 Sports has him the lowest at 3rd, while On 3 has him at 2, and ESPN also has him at 2, and Rivals has him as the top player in the state of Nevada. So he really is all over the place in terms of rankings.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and they say some of them say interior offensive lineman, some say offensive tackle. So, I'm not sure exactly where the fit would be. I think more teams see him as a tackle. I mean, he's 6'5", 300 pounds, really great athlete, but I think most teams would prefer, trying to play you at tackle. But if not, it's always good to have a guy who could play multiple positions. But at any rate, he is going to be visiting. I think his visit started yesterday, or at least it's starting today. So a midweek visit for Douglas Utu. He just was at Michigan. That was a visit there. I feel like Michigan and Nebraska are kind of in this top mix. I want to say like Washington and Alabama are in the mix too. But for such a high profile guy, he kind of does, he just like posted on X or Twitter that he was taking this midweek visit. So he's kind of an under the radar guy in terms of, doesn't do a ton of interviews and stuff. His mom did say that Michigan set the bar high at their visit, but I never know what that means when they set the bar high. Well, cool. I mean, I don't, that doesn't, he didn't commit there. So I feel like Michigan did a good job, but again, that they sell things a little bit differently, especially with NIL. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. But, I do feel like it's a Michigan, or at least the Michigan and Nebraska are kind of the top 2 teams battling it out. So keep an eye on Douglas Utu, because that would be another, big time commitment. They're in the mix for, David Sanders a little bit. They're on the exterior. Broderick Shull, their co-leader. If they could find a way to get Broderick Shull and Douglas Utu, I mean, as much as I would love David Sanders, I still think that would be a tremendous haul for this class.
Absolutely, and I feel like Sanders is more of a, not necessarily a pipe dream, but like you guys said, on the outside looking in, kind of wishful thinking. Whereas Shull and Utu, I feel like we have a better chance with. And Utu's from Bishop Gorman, and they have a lot of good linemen coming up. A lot of good linemen coming up in the program, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he visited for the spring game back in April. So he has some experience in Nebraska already, and I'll tell you what, if they can get an offensive lineman pipeline from Bishop Gorman, that would make me very happy.
Yeah, that would definitely make me very happy. There's some other good guys in there as well. And they had the guy Rugaroli that they got from Bishop Gorman last year. So, but yeah, another interesting visit to watch there. The big visit weekends for Nebraska are the 14th and the 21st. So they're kind of doing their camp thing this weekend, but still an important visit there. So now Nebraska finally adds to their roster. The Berkey Buikatunzel buzz was out there for like a month. They were involved a little bit with Travion Brazil, I think is his name, from Arkansas. So Berkey commits. Brazil goes back to Arkansas. And Nebraska, I don't think, is going to fill that last spot. They played with it open last year. So I don't know if they just, want to have it open for, recruiting purposes or whatever. But I'm fairly certain that the roster is set. Berkey, if you're not that familiar with him, a 6'9", 245-pound guy, played at UCLA last season, 26 games with 8 starts, averaged 4.5 points per game, shot 38% from the field, 29% from 3, 62% from the free throw line. So pretty raw player, but he's a guy that, he's been projected as a potential second round pick in the
Yeah.
2025 NBA draft. So I mean, he's has big time upside. He has 3 years of eligibility remaining. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Berkey Bouyakatunsil going to Nebraska? Hopefully, I'm saying that right. If not, then I've lost all hope with pronunciations.
I think you might be. I think you might be. I don't think you're too far off. What I can say is it's going to be a name I think we're going to have to learn. I mean, because you look at what he brings to the table, and he's not, a perimeter player. He's not just a post player. He can be a little bit of both, and I think that's really interesting because for me, when you look at this, transfer class, I know Braxton May is a senior, I believe, but is he a senior or a junior?
I think he's a senior.
So if you're talking about this year, or just in general, Bouyakatunsil can help space the floor if need be. He can play on the perimeter while the big guys take care of the work inside. He can also drive to the hoop. He has very nice touch around the rim. And one of the things that really stood out to me was his, ability and success in international play. I've always said that I feel like international players are a bit more polished due to the level of competition that they face. And he played in the U18 championship in 2022, where he averaged, 12.3 points, 7.4 rebounds per game. And he also played last year in the FIBA U19 Basketball World Cup, and he was one of the 5 standout players named to the All-Star 5, which is a team comprised after the tournament. So that international experience, I think, helped him develop his game and, is a big plus. And so I think this is big because, again, and then I'll let you talk, Nebraska's gotten another transfer with multiple years of eligibility. They have a guy that they can put in at the very least after Bryce Williams leaves at the starting forward spot. And quite honestly, I think he could even make a push now. I mean, he's a dynamic scorer. He can, kind of provide that, athleticism and, scoring touch. And so this is another case where this is a transfer that's not only going to help right now, but also for the future. And I think that's absolutely huge.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think has a lot of potential. Him and Gavin Griffiths are two guys that, I could see as future NBA draft picks, if Fred Hoiberg can develop them and get the most out of them. Because Griffiths was a top 50 recruit, and Berkey definitely has that ability. I mean, you look at him shoot, and I mean, he's everything that you want in that stretch 4 kind of 3-4 wing that can attack the basket, can play inside, can shoot the three. He's got a ton of skill. Just needs to be more productive this year. But he did get 8 starts last year, and I don't ever get too worried about the freshman numbers, because guys, for one, it's their first introduction into college basketball, it's a big difference from even international play. It's just a much more physical game, and so there's always going to be that rough spot. It's like with Gavin Griffiths, your freshman numbers are not going to be the same as your sophomore numbers. For those guys can take big leaps. And the thing about Fred Hoiberg is he really is a great tactician offensively. So I think he's going to get the most out of like Berkey and Connor Essegian and Gavin Griffiths and all these guys. And I really like Nebraska's lineup potential. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see Berkey starting. Off the top of my head, I feel like Braxton Mean and Andrew Morgan are going to be the 2 guys in there, but that's not for sure. The reason I go with Andrew Morgan, I just think back to last year, and they kind of settled in with Rink Mass and Josiah Leak as their starters. And to me, I think that Andrew Morgan is the best low post scorer this team has. And Braxton May, has had some, he's more of like a dunker finisher. I don't really see Nebraska, dumping the ball into him and being like, okay, go put a post move on somebody. And you know what I mean? Like so I just am not sure if they do like to run those guys through the post, whether it was Rink, doing some things, or, with Derek Walker. But that doesn't, it really, I think, depends, on how, Berkey kind of develops. And if he takes a huge leap from last year and is, showing all of his tools off, there's no reason he can't come in and start too. But I do think those 3 guys are going to play a lot in the front court. I could also see, them moving Gary up to the 4 and starting May, Gary, Williams, Gavin Griffiths or Asijan, and then Raleigh Wooster. So I feel like they have a lot of different options with their starting 5.
For me, I would rather put Boya Katunzel instead of having a Morgan mini lineup, because although it worked last season, having 2 big guys, especially when it came to Big Ten play, was problematic at times just due to the athleticism. But like you said, you're not kind of forced into that lineup, full time. Now you have the ability to kind of mix and match according to what you want. And the depth on this team, again, is going to be a strong suit of this program. And, the transfer portal may be unorthodox, but it's the way you build a successful program in college basketball these days. And it's been a winning formula for, this coaching staff. So, I think the ability to play multiple guys in multiple situations at multiple positions is definitely a positive. And I also think, having so many younger transfers that you can build around instead of, all graduating or all departing is big as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, a lot of guys. Yeah, because May and Raleigh Wooster are both graduate transfers, but and Morgan is a graduate transfer too. But yeah, the other 3. I mean, to get Gavin Griffiths and Asijan and Boya Katunzel, all from Big Ten programs too. I might add, these aren't guys coming from the Mid American Conference, and I do think that matters. I'm not saying that Andrew Morgan is coming in from the Missouri Valley, which is the Summit League, which is a solid league. I mean, that's not to say he can't make a contribution. I mean, Rink Mast came up from the Missouri Valley and got 3rd team All Big Ten last year, so it's definitely possible. I feel like they're gonna the thing about all 3 big guys is you can run them through the ball screen stuff, because May is the guy that he can take the ball screen and go get a lob, and do that type of thing. Morgan and Boya Katunzel can both pop out and shoot threes. I mean, Morgan didn't shoot a ton of threes, but he is a 34% 3-point shooter. So I think he's very similar to Rink Mast. It's not like Rink Mast was chucking up a bunch of threes last year, but if you give him that shot on the pick and pop, like, he can make it on you. So there's that aspect of it too. And it's going to be interesting to me to see what they do with Gary and Williams, because I look at those 2 guys as who are going to play the most minutes this year. They're going to start whether they start at the 2 and the 3 or the 3 and the 4, however they play. Those are going to be your 2 heavy minutes guys. I think Raleigh Wooster is going to play a lot, but I do think that Aaron Eulis could get some opportunities there as the backup. I mean, he hasn't played in a year, but he's been a Big Ten point guard as well, so it wouldn't shock me if he was in the mix for some minutes. And then those 3 front court guys, I think they're going to kind of rotate in and out. I don't know. I still feel like Andrew Morgan might end up playing the most, but it depends how it works out. But if he proves to be the most consistent low post scorer, I just feel like Fred Hoiberg's going to want that in his lineup. So I don't know how that's, but I feel like that Morgan, you could play Morgan and Berkey together. You could play Morgan and Braxton May. I think you could play Braxton May and Burt. So I think they're all interchangeable, and at least gives you 3 guys that are 6'9" and above, that can kind of help you get through the Big Ten season, because you definitely need a few big guys to get. And I still do worry a little bit that they don't have enough depth in the front court for the Big Ten Conference, because kind of 3 true big guys still seems a little bit light. But Juwan Gary can play the 4 if needed. Bryce Williams could even play the 4 if he had to. I mean, he's 6'9", so
yeah.
I feel, and the other part is those guys still have to guard you as well. So that's where I like them offensively, because they have a ton of weapons. And I like the defensive additions to this. Berkey's a guy who can defend people, but I really like Raleigh Wooster and Braxton May. I think these guys are going to make really big impacts, on the defensive end as much as on the offensive end.
So now that we have the roster a little bit filled out, just from, let's just say on paper, do you think this roster is better than last year, about the same, or worse?
It's really hard to say. I think that this roster has a higher ceiling. I think that they have a lower floor, I guess I'll say, because some things do have to kind of go, like Berkey and Gavin Griffiths kind of need to take that second year leap. And Connor Asijan needs to be more the guy he was 2 years ago instead of last year. You know what I mean? And then you need Andrew Morgan to be able to step up and kind of do what Rink Mast did, which is go up to a power 4, power 5 league, whatever you want to call it, and kind of keep that same production. So there are some things that's you're still kind of like, those what if type things, but I feel, but the thing is, Griffiths and Asijan and those guys, I mean, they've played, in the Big Ten. Braxton May, I would like to see him produce the way he did 2 years ago when he was healthier. So I feel like there are still kind of those hit, like they have to, rely on certain guys to do certain things. But I do feel like that there's more upside with this team if it all kind of works out, if all these pieces come together. But like if Griffiths and Berkey Bouygues just like have breakout seasons, I mean, you could be looking at two potential NBA prospects there with Gary, with Bryce Williams, with a Braxton May, and then Andrew Morgan. And like Raleigh Wooster's not going to be an NBA draft pick, but like I still saw people yesterday commenting in one of the things like, oh, still need a point guard. No, we do not. We have a point guard, and he's going to be really good, and he actually can defend. And so I'm really excited about what he brings to the table. And just a true pass first point guard. I mean, like Sam Griesel, I think he's very much going to remind people of the way that Sam Griesel played. I mean, he'll score and he can shoot some threes, but for the most part, he's going to be a great defender and he's going to, set up other guys. So I think that this is a more complete team, but you miss that kind of superstar aspect of Keisei Tominaga being able to take over a game. So I don't know. I'm hoping that, Gavin Griffiths or one of those guys can kind of step up and kind of take that helm this year. But overall, I would say a higher ceiling, lower floor, but I think this is an NCAA tournament team.
I do too. And I don't think we need a point guard. We don't even need a scoring point guard in my opinion. We just need somebody that can run the offense and distribute the basketball. We didn't have that last season. Now we are going to. And I would say I'd say probably a little bit better than last year just because of, the potential of Braxton May. I think having a true 7-footer is important, especially when it comes to the physicality inside and second chance points, because second chance points were an issue for Nebraska last year. So I love the thought of him being able to rebound and kind of box out and, grab those rebounds. You were talking about NBA draft picks. I think I could throw a Sejan in there as well. If he can kind of rebound to what he was 2 years ago, his type of play, is what the NBA is kind of catered to nowadays. So I could see him in there too. And right now, I'd say probably they're a little bit better than they were last year. But like you said, a lot of things have to go right.
Yeah, I think so. But I like the different pieces that you have, and like I said with Gary, you can move different guys around, moving him to the 4. So I feel like Gary and Bryce Williams are going to kind of be the linchpin, and he's going to be able to work a lot of other pieces around that. And it's just going to be fun to see how they all develop. But you've got guys that have started in other places. I mean, they're adding 4 players who have started games for Power 5 programs. I think that's a huge deal. And yeah, Braxton May is the kind of explosive, rim protector and finisher that they just haven't had the past couple of seasons. So I really think that's going to impact their defense. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting basketball season for the men and for the women. So I think they've got some nice players too. And we'll wrap it up there, you guys. We'll be back on Monday with another episode of our podcast. So make sure you check it out. Make sure that you hit the like button, get into the comments section. Please subscribe to the channel. It definitely helps us out. And then check out HuskerBigRed.com as well. We've got lots of great written content there. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.